Hello, my name's Bond, Richard Bond, and this is Curmudgeonly Yours, a show on Society Bites Radio, part of the Radio Ear Network family, supplying social interaction for the mind and soul. The introductory and concluding music to this show is La Polonaise by Wieniawski, played by Max Bond. I am your host and curmudgeon, where everything is what it seems. Nothing is what it seems. And what is not said is often of most interest. My guest today is author, motivational speaker, and book marketer, Pat McCannick, and our program is Book Marketing. Hi, Pat. Welcome to Curmudgeonly Yours on Society Bites Radio.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Pat McCannick is an author, entrepreneur, and former journalist. Her debut novel, Illusions of Paradise, earned a 5-star review from Reader's Favorite and has more than 24 5-star reviews from readers on Amazon.com, and her website is illusionsofparadise.net. The Island Set Murder Mystery tells the story of Tony Jackson, a sexy, savvy newspaper reporter who lands on an island and finds love, murder, and mayhem, as well as her life in danger, as she digs deep and crosses the wrong people in her quest to uncover the truth about the murder of a mysterious woman. Pat's diversified communications company, Pat McCannick and Associates, LLC, which celebrated 19 years in business in 2019, specializes in public relations, marketing, media training, social media marketing, and executive and business coaching. The company recently launched BookBuzz Media, a division specializing in helping indie or independent authors market their books. This ADDY Award-winning former print and broadcast journalist reported for news organizations including newspapers in the Caribbean, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times. A noted public speaker, Pat is known for motivational and inspirational presentations to business, professional, and civic organizations that move people to action and encourage them to believe in and start living their dreams, no matter their age or station in life. She is also widely recognized for sharing strategies for successful media and marketing campaigns, and the very popular Creating a Mystery presentation to writers, aspiring writers, and readers who appreciate a keep-you-guessing, edge-of-your-seat mystery. This certified life coach enjoys reading, traveling, and creating art, and is working on a follow-up to Illusions of Paradise. Pat McCannick, you are an author, communication strategist, motivational speaker, workshop presenter, and certified life coach. You're also the owner of Pat McCannick and Associates. With all the different things you do, could you tell me what you enjoy doing most? What is the most fun for you, most difficult?
Writing by far is the most fun. Not at all difficult. I've always been a writer. Always knew I wanted to write. I was a journalist for 20 years and always wanted to write a book. So I'm sort of living my dream right now.
And that's the most fun for you. Okay. Well, Pat McCannick, you are a very clear motivational speaker. I have already attended a couple of your talks, one on book marketing and this recent one on both your first novel, Illusions of Paradise, and Building a Murder Mystery. When you speak, you have a good presence, excellent presence, I would say, excellent charisma. People sit up and listen to you. What's next on your speaking tour? What about and when will you be speaking?
Well, thank you for the compliments. I am actually in South Carolina. I just had a very lovely book signing Sunday, attended by about 100 people. We did a presentation, food. It was a major event. My next speaking engagement, I'm in Sarasota, Florida, November 20th. I'm going to do Creating a Mystery again. Creating a Mystery is sort of a fun, funny, interactive presentation on how a mystery comes together in the mind of an author, and actually take the participants inside the mind of an author. That's November 20th in Sarasota, Florida, at the Fruitville Library from 1 to 3 p.m.
What address is that? It's right on the Fruitville Road or something?
Yes, Fruitville and Colburn Road in Sarasota, Florida. Fruitville Library.
Okay, and what time did you say that was again? 5:30?
It starts at 1 p.m. from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And we do them. We do them in the evening, and sometimes we do them during the day because a lot of people don't like to drive at night. So we try to make sure there's something for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just finished your book, and I enjoyed the ending very much there. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and that's the fun part about murder mysteries. And also, it was a sort of it was a feel good book too. Despite some of the some of the macabre things, but they were kept to a minimum. So I thought it was a pretty, it's a feel good book, a fun book.
Thank you.
Well, Pat, let's talk about marketing, book marketing for a moment. What are the best ways to market one's book, assuming the book is well written and has a good story? You go into that a bit?
Well, it depends on the genre. The most important thing is to know your audience. And you need to know that and decide on that before you start writing. Who are you writing to? Often people will say, I'll ask them, who is your book for? And they'll say everybody. Not for everybody. So you have to find your target demographic. Where are they? What are they reading? What are they watching? Are they on Facebook? And you have to speak to them. You have to speak to them consistently, out of mind, out of sight, out of mind. And as an author, even as an independent author, you're not just competing with the person who sits next to you at the local writers' meeting. You're competing with John Grisham and James Patterson and all of the other authors. So you really have to stay out there consistently. You really have to find your audience and speak to your audience.
Well, let's talk about John Grisham for a bit, because I've read a lot of his books. And it seems to me that John Grisham was a lawyer. I guess he's still a lawyer, or maybe just a writer now. But anyway, he wrote A Time to Kill as his first book, and then he wrote The Firm, and that's what sort of launched him. But the thing is, do you really think he was thinking when he wrote those books, he was thinking of a target audience, or was he just writing about all the crap, excuse the expression, that he comes across as a lawyer?
I think that he was trying to appeal to people who like a good mystery. We all have a primary demographic, and maybe that's people who love a good murder mystery. And then we have a secondary demographic. In my case, it's women. It's women of a particular age, and then there's subgroups. And so, I think he did very specifically. And there are people who specifically like a good mystery thriller with a legal backdrop.
Okay.
Even though I can't speak for John Grisham, right. I love his work. But I kind of think it was no accident that he wrote the way he did and sort of appealed to the audience that he did.
Yeah, because I'm not sure about when you say we're writing to a target audience. I mean, I understand what you mean once you have that audience, but when you first start out, I think you just write what you know and what you feel like, right? And then you see how that fits into your target audience. So what do you think about that?
I think it's just the opposite. I think you need to start off with, who is this book going to appeal to? I knew that the book would appeal to women. In that case, you have to make sure some of the characters, the men, are men that they could see themselves with. You really need to know who you're speaking to. It sets the tone for the writing. It sets the scenes. It sets, is it going to have a romance? How spicy is the romance going to be? So you really need to know before you start, who am I writing to? What's my target demographic? And again, the overarching demographic can be mystery lovers. But then what's that large subgroup? Is it women? Is it, fans of a legal mystery? Is it? So you really need to be clear on that, I think.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you a similar question I asked Donna Lee, another author and book marketer whom you know, and it was on my show recently. I personally, myself, spent years in the past trying to get a literary agent in LA, New York, Paris, and London, but I found it was a lost cause. Today, I resent having to spend so much time marketing the many books, plays, and screenplays I've written. I would rather spend my limited time writing and rewriting them to make as good make them as good as I can. I am sure I am not alone. Maybe I have a bad attitude after all. This show is called Curmudgeon Yours. But what is it about the book industry in particular and our culture in general that we all have to do everything ourselves? This do everything yourself mentality. Maybe all writers really need a literary agent.
That's sort of a double-edged sword, because when you talk to people who have had agents, the stories aren't great stories.
Mm-hmm.
People will often say, I don't want to do everything and I don't have the time. But my question is always, what is it that you want? What's your priority? My goal is to be able to keep writing. At some point that book sales will, pay for, because right now, the whole marketing budget, everything is on me. But at some point that the book will get to the bestseller list, that I'll get it in enough hands, that I get it in the right hands, and somebody will say, let's turn this into a movie. But again, what are your priorities? Writing the book, I say that the marketing of it is almost as hard as the writing.
I think it's harder. That's what
Yeah. But a lot of stuff I've done for myself, agents would have done. And actually, I've done a lot more for myself than an agent might have done. I'm fortunate I have a background, almost 20 years as a PR and marketing person. But, it was a new product. So I sort of tested everything. I used to say, throw it against the wall and see what sticks when it comes to book marketing. And I figured out a lot of stuff. And a lot of stuff I do goes beyond and above what an agent would do. And so one of the things I'm going to do, too, is I'm going to start to do some boot camps to teach authors when they walk in with a book and a book cover, when they walk out, they're going to have a marketing campaign, because it's not rocket science. I think people think that if you get an agent, it's a magic bullet. You'll go wherever you want to go. But even if you get an agent, you can't be hands off. You still have to be involved. So there's a lot of things that authors can do for themselves that they just don't know to get themselves out there.
Right, but I mean, it's like everything today. You go and you ask for plumbing service. Well, then they send you an app, and then they want a questionnaire filled out about how the service was. Everything seems to be more and more complicated, especially with the computers and everything. So after a while, you just sort of get fed up with it. I just like to sit down with a pen and paper and type out my thing first, and then go over it with a pen and just work on the writing, because I think the writing it's so much work that the marketing, I think, would be set in better hands than mine. You know what I mean? That's my thing.
I think it's not as complicated as people think it is. It really isn't. If you have a good book, that's the thing. You got to start with a good book that's well edited, well packaged. You find your target demographic and you speak to them. And sometimes it's by the book. It's a subtle. And other times it's just you're telling your audience who you are.
Sure.
What I've found, and I've sold a lot of books and been pretty successful at this, and again through trial and error. But what I found is that people aren't necessarily buying the book; they're buying me. So when I stand in front of people and I talk to them about living my dream and what this book is and the energy, people buy into that and they buy the book. But it's really not as hard as most authors think it is. And that's one of the reasons I want to do the boot camps is to bring people in and say, look, this is what you do. It's not that difficult. I'm going to teach you messaging, how to find your target demographic, how to speak to them. I'm going to actually teach them to create collaterals for social media. There's some apps that you can download that, I do all kind of stuff and people go, wow, you're a graphic artist? Apps, and actually teach them to create, go to some of the websites and create collaterals, postcards, bookmarks, standing banners. It's really not that difficult. I think